What an amazing difference this woman has made to our organization. Thank you and good morning. Thank you on behalf of the National Women's History Museum, our board of directors, our LA Council, and our very dedicated staff. Thank you for joining us this morning and for celebrating these remarkable women: Abigail Breslin, Toni Coe, Tracy Ellis Ross, and Rachel Zoe, and their contributions. We are profoundly grateful for your support and your presence here today. Many of you are longtime supporters and are already familiar with the museum, while others may not know why it's so important to have a Women's History Museum in Washington, D.C., or why there isn't one already. Many assume that a National Women's History Museum already exists, and we get their phone calls almost every day. They are surprised to learn that there is not a physical building that they can go visit. While there are 35,000 museums in our country, and some of them may have some special exhibits about certain aspects of women's history, not one museum is dedicated to telling the whole story of women's contributions and accomplishments in our culture and history. That's why we need a National Women's History Museum, to include the forgotten half of our population and complete our national story. Did you know that only 13 of the 217 statues in our U.S. Capitol building are of women? And fewer than 8% of the public statues across the United States commemorate a female figure. In addition, from a study that we did, we learned that fewer than 1 in 4 Americans can correctly identify women like Sally Ride, our first American woman in space. We need to change that. The National Women's History Museum worked with members of Congress to pass legislation that created this congressional commission that has been mentioned. Go ahead. A reflection of the political and budget climate at the time, the legislation stated that the commission must be privately funded, which is a first for a national museum. Knowing this was a necessary step for us to secure a site on the National Mall, we committed $1 million to fund the commission. The commission will deliver its report, as mentioned, this November. Myra Sadker, a pioneer in researching the impact of gender in the classroom, summed it up perfectly when she said, "Each time a girl opens a book and reads a womanless history, she learns she is worth less." When girls learn about accomplished women in history, they become more aware of the possibilities for their own lives. And for boys, it's important for them to see accomplished women so that they are aware that women also were important in shaping our nation and that their female classmates have value and opinions worth hearing. The value of women's contributions will be unquestionable, and respect for women in any role will be shared by both men and women. I invite you to join us as we push to secure a space on the National Mall. Your support is critical, as it is likely that the days of federal funding for national museums are over. The last time Congress funded a national museum wasn't in 2003. The National Museum of African American History and Culture will open its doors next week. 13 years. 13 years after it was authorized by Congress. As budgets become tighter, we know that it is likely that Congress will require that the Women's History Museum be privately funded. So we need your help to show Congress we are committed and we have the capacity to raise the funds needed to make the National Women's History Museum a reality. America deserves a Women's History Museum. Help us light the way for future generations.